Good morning. Happy New Year. Today I'm out at Cape Disappointment in Washington, and it's a king's tide. So that means the tide, the distance between the high tide and the low tide is the greatest all year. And the tide's coming in, and it's been raining all morning. So it's could be a crapshoot as far as the weather goes, but we're going to give it a shot. We're waiting, just getting set up and waiting for hopefully a little break in the clouds. We don't have to have it, but a little bit of backlighting on these waves are going to really make a difference. So we'll see what happens, and I'll be out here for a few hours, and if I get something, then we'll definitely share it. But there is a lot of photographers here this morning. Everybody seems to have come up with the idea to come out here. I don't know how they found out about this super secret place, but let me just show you how many people are here. It's kind of crazy. So here it is behind me. There's just this gigantic line of photographers in the parking lot. I don't know, it's probably, you can count them. I'm not going to. There's a lot. And this is Waikiki Beach at Cape Disappointment, and you see the tide is all the way up. A lot of times on a low tide, even right here, right there, you can see the beach. And so the tide is still coming in. It's still not all the way up. So I imagine that it'll go all the way up to the to those logs up on the beach. And then here is where I'm set up. I've got this super expensive camera cover, three pack at the local store. It's a shower cap. Works great just to keep the water off your camera. And you got the really cool lighthouse back there as a background, and the waves are just coming in. It's very, very cool. And we're going to set up and wait and get some good shots, I hope. So the key is definitely want to have a cable release. Set your shutter to continuous, high speed, as many shots as you can possibly get. And you're waiting for the waves that are coming in to rebound against the ones that are going out. Shutter speed's about 5/100th of a second. You want to freeze that motion. And you can go a little faster if you need to, if you really want to have everything, but I like a little bit of blur, you know, on the crest of the wave, just enough to give it that extra strength. I like the way that looks, but it's to taste, just whatever you want. Well, the sun actually came out for a little bit, which has really helped. There was almost too much, with a lot of glare on the wave, so I ended up with putting a circular polarizer on to help deal with that a little bit. The tide is still coming in, so probably another hour or so, but we got some really nice, I mean, the skies are turning out to be pretty nice. Again, you have to watch your exposure to make sure you're not blowing out any of these highlights in the waves when they're coming in, and the light changes so fast. You have to just constantly keep an eye on it. You want to maintain that shutter speed of around 5/100th of a second. That shutter speed is really important so that you capture those waves and freeze that motion. And so you have to, you know, adjust your ISO to compensate for that, because again, when you're shooting, I'm about 130 millimeters, somewhere around in there. I want a good depth of field, so I'm at f8, sometimes f11, depending on the sun, you know, just to help keep that exposure in check. Keep your ISO as low as possible, and you should be able to capture, you know, keep from blowing out any of those highlights. You don't want to blow the highlights out. So I'm getting ready to head back to the car, and the high tide is hit. I'll be back here again. This is a great place to shoot if you ever get out to the Pacific Northwest. Cape Disappointment State Park, and this is near Waikiki Beach. That's what they call it. But again, there's just a huge number of photographers here. It's usually not nearly this crowded, but because it's a king's tide, and we had a break in the weather this afternoon where we actually had some sun with some nice side lighting, it's just really packed. It also can be really, really dangerous with these big waves coming in. It's just a lot of logs. Where I was in the beginning, I actually had to move because the logs were actually starting to move because the waves were pushing them. So like you see the logs in front of the line of photographers, and the logs will actually get washed up over to here. You can see some on the other side of the parking lot. So it gets crazy storms that come in off the ocean, and I'll push those logs all the way up. So even though this is a state park and it looks to be really, really safe, for the most part it is, but you still got to be careful. You got to watch the tides, you got to watch the waves. Big waves can sneak up on you. You don't want to be too far out on those logs, or even on those logs at all. Stay way back and you'll be fine. So here we are in Lightroom, and I wanted to go over some of the photos from Cape Disappointment and show you a sequence of shots of the waves coming in and how I pick the one that I like the best. So I'm in high-speed shutter, so I'm continuous shooting as fast, as many frames per second as I can possibly get out of my camera, and I'm using a remote shutter release. That allows me to hold the button down and not have to look through the viewfinder and just capture a whole sequence of waves as they come in, so that I can pick that exact shot that I want. It's very important that you have it locked down on a tripod so there's no movement. It's next to impossible to be looking through the camera waiting for a wave to come and then snapping that shot to get the exact one that you want. It's critical when you're shooting shots like this that you have a tripod and that you have in high speed sync mode, so that you're shooting as many frames per second as you possibly can with your camera. So this is the start of the shot, and we'll go through them one at a time, and you'll watch the wave as it starts to grow. Gets a little taller. It's getting taller. It's getting taller. So I'm looking for that apex. This is a shot that you'll notice it looks different. I did edit this shot. I really like this one, and I'll explain why in a minute. But let's keep going. It gets taller. It's getting taller, taller, taller. And I believe that we're starting to see it fall. Maybe not quite yet. There we go. That's when it starts to fall. You'll notice right here it's starting to fall and collapse on itself. So I'm looking for the shot that is at the apex or close to it, or one that has all the right elements. Now, I don't like this one as much as the previous ones. Notice here this little tunnel starts to go away. This is kind of getting messy down here at the bottom. So I go back one shot, and I've got really nice apex. And this is one that's been edited, and we'll go back and I'll show you what I did to get here. But I really like the strength and the height of the wave right here, and I really like this little bitty tunnel that's here as it's starting to curl over. And as we go back through it, like the tunnel isn't very well formed right here, and it's not very tall. Going back. Now, I like this shot, and the reason I like it is it's not the tallest, but I like the separation here at the bottom of the frame. I like this aspect down here at the bottom right. And I like the fact that there's good light. It's a little bit of backlighting happening in the wave, even down here. That starts to go away as the wave grows. So again, it's a matter of taste, but I definitely want it. And we'll go with this one. We'll edit this one. So I really like this little curl right here, this tunnel that's happening, and it's almost touching right up here. So let's go with a quick edit on this. Okay, so where do we start on this? So looking at this, my sky is pretty bland, no control over that. But what I can do is I'm going to bring the highlights down just a little bit, and that's going to help separate that wave a little bit more from the sky. Notice, see how that's pulling the sky back, but it's leaving the wave pretty much alone. And I'm not going to go too crazy with it, probably around there. And then lot of deep shadows here in this whole cliffside because I'm being backlit. The sun's way over here. It's coming in from this direction. So let's open the shadows up a little bit. Probably somewhere around in there. And there's a lot of haze, and that's simply because of all of the moisture. Those waves were, as you can see, gigantic. So what we can do is we can do just maybe a little bit of dehaze. If we get too much crazy with it, it looks awful. And it brings out some really nice sensor dust that I've got over here I've got to clean up. But that's awful. So maybe just the slightest amount to bring a little detail back in the mountain over here, in the cliffside. And let's bring in a little bit of vibrance to help color that wave a little bit. There we go. And you'll notice that my shutter speed here is 800th of a second. And I really like the way that it freezes at that shutter speed. I like the freezing of all of the little droplets, but there's a little bit of motion there. You'll notice things are starting to fall, especially in the big waves here. There's a little bit of blur as it's just such an immense wave. And I really, really like, that's the look that I like when I'm shooting waves, about 500th to 800th of a second. Really, really like that look. And I like the fact that I captured this little seagull that was trying to get out of the way of the wave. Wish there'd have been some more, but that's the one that was there for that shot. Okay, so looking at this, I'm going to add a radial adjustment. Okay, and I need to reset that, or actually I'm just going to, yeah, let's reset. And what I'm going to do is I want to darken down everything but the wave, kind of draw the eye to the wave just a little bit, maybe quite that much, about 1/3 of a stop-ish, something like that. Okay, make sure it's feathered really nicely. Okay. And I'm going to take and lighten up the lighthouse. I like the guy that's standing up here, although you really won't be able to see him too much. There is some color in this lighthouse, so I'm going to use my adjustment brush, and I'm basically going to bump this up just a little bit, make sure auto mask here is ticked. It's against the sky, so it should be pretty easy to handle doing to kind of automatically bring that up. I'm also going to bring in some saturation onto this lighthouse, just not that much, but just a little bit to get those colors, that rust and chipped paint, maybe a little bit of texture as well. There we go, something like that. Okay, and let's zoom back out. I wouldn't do a whole lot other than what I've got done here. So let's look at it before. That's straight out of camera, and here we go. That's just a real quick edit on it. Now the reason I don't like, the things I don't like about this photo that I wish I could fix, I wish I could have, I wouldn't have cut off this wave down here at the bottom right. I don't like that. That's why I ended up picking this one over the one I just edited, because this wave at the bottom right has some place to go. All right, I never want to have the wave exiting the frame and just being a big pile of mush at the bottom. So I liked this a little bit better, even though I'll lose the little tunnel, and I don't even have the seagull in here as well. So that completes the edit. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, please subscribe to my channel, give me a good thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.